what it takes to thrive in this kind of a domain. So we have an expert, Dr. Subir Verma, who heads the HR for Tata Power, and Tata Power is a very big name in the power segment. He would be giving you more insights, and he's from the industry and he's an expert. But before he takes over and he puts his thoughts, I myself would like to share a few inputs. I wouldn't really restrict them to power alone, but more importantly, on how do we, at this point of time, in see these kind of uncertain environments with every day not knowing which variant is coming and hitting us. There's so much of uncertainty around as well. Purely from a career planning, from a career thought process, what kind of approach we should be having. So, just to give you a brief on myself, I am Sumant. I head the entire online business of Global University Systems, which includes UPS and UPS Online, under the powered by Ideology, which is our edtech brand. I myself an engineer and did my MBA from IIM Kozhikode. So I've done my MBA. So some of you who are joining in this webinar are prospective MBA aspirants. You're looking to do a master's in business education in power. I've done it in general management. I've done it in marketing. But more importantly, I always keep saying this. If I were to look back at my career, there are two phases I always reflect upon. One is pre MBA, the other is post MBA. Or I would like to put it as one is pre higher education, post higher education. So prior to pursuing my higher education, I was a software engineer working in an IT company. But post my higher education, three very critical things have happened in my life. Part number one, the amount of opportunities I have got thanks to my higher education, thanks to the degree I have able to achieve, are significant. I happen to work with the Sony Entertainment Television, being a part of one of the founding team members of IPL, Indian Premier League, which is a very big brand today. Imagine somebody from Vishakhapatnam, a tier 2 tier 3 city, coming and working as a founding team of IPL with the likes of your MS Dhoni's, your Tendulkar's, your Virat Kohli's, big names today, way back a decade back. And that was a phenomenal set of opportunities. And one of the strong reason why I was able to get that opportunity is because I graduated. I've done my higher education, and that gave me a launch pad for higher opportunities. The second significant change I've seen in my own career is in terms of the money, salaries we end up getting. Pre to post my higher education, I've seen a multiplication of at least 5 to 6 times of my salaries. Now, while we all talk about good opportunities, etc., but the fact that money is also very critical in terms of the salaries we get. So that significant boost in my career has also happened thanks to the higher education, the opportunities, and the reputation and the regard the degree has been provided is immense. Yeah. And the third way I look at it is the fact that the amount of exposure, the kind of quantum of things I was able to do, that I have done entrepreneurship post that, I've been into education, I've been into consulting. Today I had one of the largest online businesses across the globe. So the amount of exposure which an MBA or a higher education gave me is phenomenal. Now, is so does higher education answer all our problems? Is it the only solution? I won't really attribute the word only to it, but is it a strong opportunity for us to change or the shift the way our careers are going? The answer is a definite yes. Yeah. The reason why I say that is because I come from a lower middle class family, a family where financials and the kind of exposures, the kind of opportunities I've had were limited. But post my higher education, the entire setup of family has changed. So one of the reasons why I chose education as a career opportunity as well, to be in the education domain, is because the kind of impact it creates on lives, especially middle class lives, where we might not have come from a very profound, strong backing at a family wise or at an economy wise. The higher education gives us a very strong opportunity. So if there were few elements, somebody were to ask me, why should I pursue a higher education, whichever domain I might be belonging to, it could be a power, it could be data analytics, it could be technology, it could be general management. My answer is very simple. when you pursue an higher education, either an MBA or a post graduation certification, what happens is that you will see a significant shift in the way you get your opportunities, the kind of demand you have in the market, the kind of salaries you get, everything changes. Yeah. Now, just not that. In an environment which is very uncertain today, where we are not even sure how the job market is going to be after 2 months, after 3 months, you always need to have a safety net which protects you from any kind of a turbulence. And that safety net is provided by higher education. When a company looks into its employees and evaluates who are those people I would like to grow in my organization, who are those people I need to give them additional opportunities, additional responsibilities, or grow them, the fundamental question they ask is that, okay, what credibility that a or she has, he or she has. And one of the ways to attach that credibility is to the fact that you have added extra skills to your profile. One are the hands-on skills which you learn when you're working, but education, might it be from industry or from academia, will also provide you those skills which will cover up your gaps. As a result, that acts as a safety net. So when it comes between, because today companies are very choosy about who to grow because of this COVID and this kind of external crunch of environment, they are very restrictive growth plans. They can't grow everybody. They have to identify the real star spots in their organization. And to for you to become desirable, and I keep saying this just not to you, even to my own employees, when you are desirable outside, you will invariably become desirable inside also. That means if you have those skills which somebody really loves, an external company, that also means an internal company also loves your skills, and they really don't want to lose talent. In spite of all these uncertainties, no organization wants to lose talent because every company wants to grow. If they were to grow, the investment they have to make is into talent. And how do you become the person they want to invest into? By improving your skills, by improving your credentials, by making yourself desirable. And one of the things you always have to keep asking yourself, if it was between me and somebody else, why should a company choose me over somebody else? As long as you have an answer to that question, you are ahead in your life and you continue to grow in your careers. So one metric which will enable to be better than the competition, and we live in a bloody competitive world, and I keep saying this, in this generation, when I use the word generation, not that there's a lot of age difference between you and me. Of course, I don't really want to bring the age difference right now, but just all the jokes aside, just to give you a context, today's generation has a lot of opportunities. At the same point of time, today's generation is also being besieged by competition. That means for every one opportunity, earlier 10 years back, maybe there were 5 people competing, but today there are 50 people competing. That means the competition has grown tenfold. The opportunities have also grown, but all with this uncertainties, opportunities always limited. But whereas competition, a number of engineers, a number of graduates who are passing out from bachelors or from any other element are humongous. India is growing phenomenally. The base is growing. So for you to grow higher in from that base, you need to add that extra zazz, extra edge to your profile. And one definite way of adding that extra edge is by upskilling yourselves, is by putting in the right credentials on your resume. And that's a place where higher education and a degree, an MBA, etc., would help you. That doesn't mean that you go and do an MBA from any random Tom, Dick, and Harry institution. You need to choose your universities. You need to choose your schools also very wisely. What kind of courses? What kind of credibility is this happening? For example, UPS, rated as one among the top, rather the best university across Asia when it comes to power, when it comes to aviation, oil and gas, logistics, and supply chain management. Am I doing it from one of the best, or am I just compromising? Yeah. So the first question you need to ask yourself, am I upskilling myself? Am I putting the right credentials onto my resume, onto my profile in my learning curve? And that's answered through higher education. Two, am I doing it from the right place? It's all, yes, you might want to eat food, but when you want to have a pizza, you also try to choose which restaurant you would like to have it from, right? You don't want to have it from any random restaurant because there's also the taste, there's also the desirability. So that's a place where a university like UPS, which is ranked among the top 100 as a university in India, and their business school from where you get your MBAs or your postgraduate certificates, ranked among the top 46, is a very strong credibility on your resume. So you graduate, you go to a prospective company outside, you know, which could be Tata Power itself. Then they will see it and they say, hey, yes, right, this gentleman or this lady has done their MBA from UPS, so it looks good on the profile. Let us give them a chance. At least you are getting an opportunity, you're getting a chance, which a lot of other people are not even receiving it. So choose that very wisely. And that's my experience of having trained lakhs of students. I mean, I would have trained almost 4 to 5 lakhs of students by now in my last 10 years of more than 10 years of my time in education. And one of the things I always realized is that every student has a strong potential. What they have to do is to take the right decisions at the right time. And that's very, very important. The timing of your decision is also important. Why? Because today you delay it, your competition is moving one step ahead. And the more steps they take, it's like a race. In a race, in a running race, if people are already taken a few yards ahead, they've already moved a few yards ahead, it's all about catching up for you them. But in a competitive world, you don't want to be behind catching up with somebody. You really want to be ahead, racing ahead in the career, in your career, in your race. All right. So see it that in that kind of a race. If you delay your decision, okay, might not be this semester, might not be this year, I will look at it after 6 months, I will look at it after 1 year. By the time you start becoming more and more irrelevant, while your competition is becoming more and more relevant for a recruiter. By the time you complete your graduation, you complete your MBA, a lot of competitors have already come into the market. So that just not taking a decision, but taking it at the right time also becomes very important. And do appreciate any kind of education is an investment. Yeah, you're investing into your career, you're investing into your life. And imagine and a typical business thought process, the return on investment. And that's one of the reasons why I keep saying world has shifted so much habitually that today, whether one of the questions a lot of students ask me is that should I pursue a physical MBA, a face to face, or should I pursue an online MBA? Does an online MBA has such kind of an appeal like a face to face MBA? And I keep saying this, from a company perspective, what matters are two three things. One, what kind of learning have you received? Yeah, do you have received significant learning? Two, have a credibility around that learning. That means if you have done an online MBA from UPS, the learning remains the same. Because today the kind of evolution an online learning space has gone through, there's not much difference between the way you learn it in the face to face and online. If not anything, online is actually giving you many more amenities to learn better, right? In terms of, if you miss a class, you can re-attend that class, you can attend the class at your own convenience, you don't have to quit your job. Imagine in this uncertain environment, you quit your job and pursue 2 years of physical MBA, and then not knowing what is going to happen. Instead, you're hedging your risk, you're continuing in the job. That means you're getting your salary, you're getting your industry job relevant learning, plus add to that you're also getting additional learning remotely online, plus you're getting an additional certification or a degree. All this adds up to your credibility. Yeah. So online that way is a very favored. That's the reason why you see seeing a significant shift of the world today, moving away from a face-to-face model only to an online or at least a blended model of learning. That's because that shift is happening. Right now, second, from a reception point of view, people are receiving both the certificates in a similar model, whether it's an online or a degree. Because suddenly what happens in an online learning is that you get access to one of the best learning systems, right from the faculty. Imagine some of the programs at UPS online, we bring in global faculty. That means faculty sitting in the London, faculty sitting in the US, from industry. Like for example, today we have Mr. Subir joining us to share his experiences. Now, would this have happened in a face to face? To get a schedule of Mr. Subir as would have been immensely challenging. So the amount of exposure you're getting at a learning curve, thanks to this medium of operation, is a very, very, it's totally in a different league. Now that is what even being applied. That means you're being trained by these kind of people. You're not just being trained by a few set of academicians, but you're being sent by being trained by a diverse set of academicians, and the kind of peer group. I have students from Nigeria, Africa. I have students from elsewhere. I have students across the country today studying online programs. That means your peer group is no more homogeneous; it becomes heterogeneous. In higher education, they say the learning just not happens from an academia or from industry, it also happens from your peer group. So when you have such a diverse peer group of learning happening, that makes the entire learning complete. So just to give you a perspective, today online learning is a very very accepted habit. It is just no more a phenomena driven by COVID. It's actually become a very habitual change, like the way you are using Paytms or a Google Play or a Big Basket ordering or an Amazon or a Mintras. That's how learning also started happening, right? In terms of acceptance by industry and by the people who are learning. Two, the if you are not getting onto this learning curve right now, your competition is moving ahead. And always ask yourself the differentiator you are adding through these kind of courses, right? And with a kind of lot of things happening, for example, the kind of LinkedIn learning we bring in LinkedIn learning. There's a lot of career services which are being offered. So suddenly the mix is becoming stronger and stronger. The offering is becoming better and better. Yeah. Now, I know some of you might have these questions, and I am also started seeing a few questions coming up. You might be asking a question on, is power sector the place to be in at this point of time in the career? And then does it really have a future? Does it really seems to be a growing domain? Because you really want to take a career in a growing domain. That's always an edge you get in. And I keep saying, see, every domain has its own appeal to it. There are some good things, there are some challenges. Now, just to give you some numbers, I'm just putting facts right in front of it. The demand, the kind of jobs which are expected to grow in power sector in India are actually doubling every year. Double. If there are X, it's becoming 2X. And the amount of demand at every level in power sector is tremendously growing. We're talking about almost what, 3.5 million jobs in the next 20 years. Now when those jobs are growing, one of the things you should also understand is that in the hierarchy, as you keep growing, people also companies need leaders to manage these kind of careers. Now, when they need managers, when they need leaders, the place they look forward to, there are two things they look forward to in a leader or a manager. One, do they have the experience in the domain, which I'm assuming some of you might already be having. Second, do they have the credibility to lead and manage a team? Do they have the learning and the credibilities? I am not too sure how many of you are actually today at a managerial position. That's the stepping stone which an MBA from in power management or a certification course will provide you. It just don't makes you as a specialist, it also makes you as a manager. The minute you start getting into managerial positions, your growth is happening both in terms of compensation and also in terms of the roles and the responsibilities you're getting out of it. So power sector is a very 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 hot sector happening going forward, right? And I would not just limit it to power. Suddenly what happens is that it gives you a scope beyond power into energy. You can move into, because what happens is that at a high level a lot of similarities are established. When you are deep down in the hierarchy or the value chain, power, energy, all seems to be different. But as you start growing in the hierarchy, if you are a, if you, let's assume you are a person who understands at a managerial position, it's about managing people, it's about understanding the domain and keep growing ahead. So as you keep growing ahead, in this domain, you're giving yourself an opportunity to also give your, to pursue other domains and other industry spaces also, right? So that's the brief and that's the kind of outlook you should have when you're pursuing higher education, either an MBA or a certificate. And today, as I told, online itself is becoming a very accepted mode of learning, and power as a sector is growing tremendously. On this note, let me invite Mr. Subir Verma. I'm sure he would like to talk about his own profile in his own words. Usually, I keep saying this: when somebody else introduces you, they only speak a few points, but when you introduce yourself, you know what more to speak about yours, because it's a journey you have gone through. It's your own personal journey, right? So let us all invite Mr. Subir. Thanks, Mr. Subir, for joining us. It's an honor to have you on this platform. We have a lot of young, kids watching, professionals. Some of them are working in power. Some of them do not belong to power sector, but are very interested to enter into this domain. And some of them are actually pursuing their MBA with the UPS, power management as an MBA. You have seen this sector for a very long period of time. You have seen people, you know, the careers which are happening. Everybody would like to hear it from your own words. What kind of career opportunities await us in this domain, sir? Please, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you, Suman. First of all, my apologies for joining late. I got stuck in some meeting which I could not avoid. So, with folded hands, I apologize for the delay. But I can assure you that this delay will be worth the wait. So I am an engineer, and then I did my MBA. I am Ahmedabad alumni. Worked in this sector for more than total professional career is more than about 23 years. Worked in many sectors: IT, retail, now in power, communication, now in power since last about quite few years. I also mentor a lot of startups. I also mentor many students. I'm on board of many institutes and many government forums like Startup India and some of the institute like ISM and GNIT. So a couple of institutes, I advise these institutes. I also advise a few startups in India and outside India, especially in technology domain, especially in HR technology domain. And my latest introduction is that I have also become an author. My book, which is called Job Search Secret, Master the Art of Getting Job, has been published by Penguin Random House, and it is doing very, very well. I always feel that most of the students, especially I love talking to students, and I prefer to speak to students rather than going to any other forums. I believe that if you know that India produces close to about 20 lakh engineers and MBA students every year, but only 10% get placed. Rest 90% are either underplaced or not placed. Underplaced means people are doing job which a graduate can do, or people are doing a job which a diploma holders can do. So the main difference which is there, I believe, and the second side, you will see that companies are complaining that I have vacancy, but I am not able to get candidates. So where is the gap? I mean, company has vacancy, they are not able to find the talent, and talent is there in market. You have many engineers in market, but they are not able to get the job. So there is a huge gap which is there between industry and what students are. And that gap is not technical. That gap is more of a art, that how are you presenting yourself to be suitable to that company. And that part is very, very missing in many MBA students and many of the premium MBA students I interact with. Because when a company goes to a campus or you go for an interview, it's not only about you, it's about what companies are looking for. So the job search process is totally an art which every job seeker and every student must know. And that is where I felt that there is a need of a book. And when Penguin Random House approached me, I thought this will be a very good subject which I can write on, through which I can help large number of students and job seekers, and that's how this book got published. Now, especially, I'm sure, I assume that we have students from UPSC who are doing power management. So when I talk about power management, especially with the careers in power management, I would say that there are job opportunity in both sectors. You need to be very, very clear. Now, generally what happens, if you go in an MBA college, so your professor comes in a class and tells you that you are future managers, and then you get into a then you get into a dreamland that I will be a manager, I would have a cabin, and my job would be only to get job done through others. So the first suggestion which I will give it to you before I get into hardcore options, career options which are there in power sector, first you need to decide what you want to do. Okay, that is something very, very important, because I have seen many people who are doing one course, but they are good in something else. So don't pursue a career just because you are doing a power management course. That is important, but what you like is absolutely important. So there are certain formula, or there are certain tips which I have shared in the book, and I very quickly I would like to share here also, that you need to decide what you want to do, and that decision need to based on 5 factors. The first factor is, what do you want to do? What is your interest? What is your high interest area, and what is your low interest area? That is something which is very, very important for you to know. Now, how do you know that? I'll give you an example, that many people overestimate themselves, that मैं तो सब कुछ कर सकता हूँ, I am the best person in the world. And there are some people who typically comes from smaller cities or smaller states like Bihar, Jharkhand, Rajasthan. These people who are not very developed, they are not very, they are not very confident persons. They underestimate themselves. So even though they have the capabilities, they feel that I will not be able to do it. So you need to write down what is your interest area, something which you love to do. Like, for example, you will see small kids love to do painting in their free time. Some people love to chat over phone. Some people love to talk. Some people love to play. So these are certain characteristics which are there. So anything which you love to do without somebody telling you to do, that is your high interest area. The rest are low interest area. So that is one factor. The second factor is your what is your what are the opportunities and weaknesses which are there. For example, there are many student or many female employees, they have this location constant. They cannot move out of, say, a Jaipur or say a Dehradun. They can't relocate to bigger cities, so your opportunity gets limited. The third part is what is your behavioral attributes. Now, there are some people who are introvert, there are some people who are extrovert. So a career choice for an introvert would be absolutely different than a career choice for an extrovert in the same domain, in the same specialization which you have chosen, because in one specialization you have multiple careers. So if you are an introvert, if you are not an extrovert, then your career choices will be different. And the fifth one is the opportunities which are available in market. So these are 5 factors which are extremely important basis, which you should write down, that these are the 2 3 career options which I want to pursue. And that will determine that you are not only getting the job, but you are also happy in the job for a long term. Otherwise, I have seen many engineers who get into the job, and after 1 year, they feel that this is not what I want to do. So that becomes a bit of a challenge, and people start changing their careers and changing their job after a couple of years time, which is very bad thing. So the first thing to think about your career, that decide what you want to do. The second is decide the sector which you want to get into. The career should be your choice. So decide the sector. The third is you get into the role which you want to choose the 2 roles which you want to get into. Then the fourth is choose the company which is your dream company to work with. The fifth is choose the company, the people in those company who can who can help you find the job. So by this way, you have to prepare a list of about 100 to 150 people to whom you can connect. And this will be the best contact list which you can ever have. And this will help you lifelong. This will help you 35, 40 years of your professional career. So this is first advice which I want to share. Now, if I have to talk about, I assume that most of you are freshers. That is my assumption. So, what are the careers which are available for power management? So, power management students or professionals, if you have say 5 6 years of experience, then there's you are required by large amount of power sectors, and power sectors is probably growing very, very fast in India and across the globe also. So if you have done, say, MBA power management or MBA in any discipline of power, then there are various career options which are there. So first option which is there, which is you could be power resource management. The second is you can work in the environmental impact assessment area of power sector. The third you can have is power auditing. So there are functions which is power auditing. So you can work in that third area. The fourth area is you have power efficiency system and technologies. There are various power efficient systems which are there. There you can work on. The fifth area which you can work in is the traditional area, which is called power generation, transmission, and distribution. So depending on where you have done your graduation, or where you have past experience, this area could be very good for you. So generation could be in thermal area, could be in renewables area, could be in new technology area like microgrid or smaller technologies area. So these are the some generation area which you can think of. The second in that segment is obviously your transmission area. Transmission area is growing very fast in India now, with government's lot of focus on unfolding transmission area for private sectors. You would see a lot of action in transmission area also. The third in this domain is in this value chain is distribution area. Now distribution area, you would see that the government has opened up a lot of distribution area. For example, the privatization of Odisha, which we took over. So Odisha is completely privatized. Delhi is completely privatized, where the private distribution players are there. You have Rajasthan, Ajmer is privatized. You have Chandigarh, which is privatized, and some of the union territories are going through privatization process where bidding has happened and private players have won. So the point which I'm trying to make is distribution is also a very growing area where you have large number of opportunity. The next area apart from conventional area is power sector laws, policy, and regulation. This is one area where very few students are choosing it, but it has large scope, because as this area opens up, you will see large amount of professionals with the knowledge of power sector, with the knowledge of the domain knowledge which you all have is required to make law in the power sector, the policies in power sectors, the regulation in power sector. So that is required. So that is the sixth area where different career option could be there. The seventh area is power pricing and economics. Now you would see that how pricing is determined by different regulatory commission, different state regulatory commission, whether it is a DERC or MERC or any state electricity commission. There is no transparency, there is no science behind it. At least I am not aware of any science behind it. So how power pricing is being fixed? What is the economics behind it? What should be different economics behind it? It's a big area which a lot of companies are looking for. The ninth area is power tariffs and trading. You would see many companies which are there in trading, because any surplus power can be traded now. Like you trade in share stocks, so similarly power trading can happen. There are a couple of power trading exchange, including Tata Power Trading, that is there. So power tariff and trading could be another option. The 10th option is power project planning and financing. So you would see that a lot of project planning which is happening, whether it is generation project, transmission project, distribution project, or greenfield project, or brown project. So all these power project planning and financing is another area which is very important, where you can see your career. The 11th area would be clean energy development mechanism. So there are a lot of focus on clean energy, with the whole world focusing towards sustainability, and every country taking target or sustainability goal till 2030. There is going to be huge scope in this area. So if some of you who are, say, introvert, who want to work on papers, who want to work in office, doesn't want to interact with external stakeholders, this area could be a very exciting area for people who are introvert, who are very research oriented, who are very creative, who are very articulative. So this area could be a wonderful area for all of you. The next area The 12th area could be economics of power, demand, supply, and policy. So we talked about the generation part. We talked about the power pricing part. We talked about the power tariff and trading part. We talked about power project planning part and financing part. So these are all from the supply side, what a company can do, what government can do, whether company, I mean, whether it is private company or government company can do. There is another segment which is very important segment, which is the demand side, which is the customers. Customers could be B2C customers. Customer could be B2B customer. So customer could be a general customer like you and me. Customer could be a SME, industries, could be establishment. So these are the customers which are there. So what is the economics of power demand? How do you forecast power? How do you predict what is the different power which are required by different organization? How they can optimize these power at their organization? So power demand by different type of customers, their supply and the policy could be the 12th area. And the final area which I would recommend for all of you is the power security part. Currently you see a lot of technological development, which is technological innovation, which is happening in form of blockchain or any other such technology. So there is a lot of company, including us, are exploring technology like data monetization or blockchain, how we can use that to secure power, how we can use that to protect different processes, policies, data of our consumers, of our companies. So power security would also be one very important area which is going to be there. So these are some of the area, 13, 14 area which I just shared about would be an important area for power management students like you.
Oh, thanks. Great, Subir, for that. I'm sure our students have a lot of questions to ask. I think to the couple of questions from my side, which I was able to consolidate from our students, and I'm sure one of them is a very cliched yet a very could be a little offensive question also. In a very glamorous looking domains which we have, like technology, talk about data, etc. How do you see power? If somebody is coming into power as a career opportunity, what kind of repute or what kind of high levels they could reach in a segment like in an area like domain, in a domain like power?
So it's a wonderful area. See, there are two areas because we keep on going to many colleges also. There is a one glamorous companies which are there, like you have IT companies, you have Facebooks, you have Microsoft, TCS, Infosys. These are glamorous company where people want to work. And traditional power sectors does not used to be glamorous, which is a myth. Now we are also very glamorous because these all company, whatever you think of, they depend on us to run their business. If we don't generate power, if we don't distribute power, they are nowhere there. So if you are in plant, in generation plant, obviously you will have to work at a remote location. The only disadvantage which power sector people have, if you choose generation as your career option, then you will have to be ready to work in remote locations because power plants would not be in a metro cities. But that has also transitioned because if somebody has a limitation because of whatever reason, somebody is a female employee, somebody is only child of their father, so obviously mobility is a problem for them. So for them also you have many options like in trading or in distribution. These are consulting, security, incubation. So these are some area where you also get option to work in larger cities. Glamorous wise, what makes a glamour? Glamour is generally made by the employee engagement initiative. Like you do a lot of you do a lot of social recognition of people, where which typically these IT industries are very far ahead. But power sectors, if you see our recognition program, if you see our learning and development program, it is far better than most of the IT companies, and our people are very happy. So it is glamorous. It depends how do you define the glamour is. If you want to quit every company in 2-3 years, this is not the sector. This is one sector which needs stability, because you will at least take a couple of years time at least to understand what this sector it is. Not like IT sector coding. If you're doing coding in say HTML or C++, you will do coding lifelong. Here things change very fast, so you will have to be adaptive, and you have to look at least a tenure of 4 to 5 years minimum. That is something which students should be prepared for.
Yeah. See, the other question also which we have received earlier was on traditionally, like you've also identified or rather mentioned, power is seen more as a public sector investment or driven segment, and that's typically how India for a long time has been also. So how do you see the privatization happening, and as a result, more and more opportunities opening up in this segment?
No, see, if you see the current power sector which are there are a lot of changes which is happening. So, for example, if you think about what India used to produce power earlier, so currently India is the third largest producer and the second largest consumer of electricity in the world. It has installed capacity close to about 340 gigawatt. That's huge. And government has released a roadmap. If you see, government has released a roadmap of another 227 gigawatt capacity, out of which around 70% is renewables. So, and union government, if you see, has prepared a rent a roof policy. So there is a lot of policy newness in the innovation in the policy is also there. So it is no more government sector. You will see there's large amount of private players are there. You would see the private players like Adani, Tata Power, Reliance, Suzlon, Renew Power. You will see at least 20 power companies are there, whether small or big, that's a different issue. But there are at least 20 power sector companies are there, and these are the company which are going to take India forward. So there is huge opportunity, and there is a huge change in the mindset of the government also, where things are going to be there. So if you see private sector enterprise, also the second is also private sector enterprise. So you have hardly 6-7 companies. NTPC is there, you have NHPC, you have Power Finance Limited, and you have NPCI. So only 5 players, public sector companies are there. Whereas if you see private sector, there would be about 20 companies. And these are the companies which would grow. So I see very positive and very, very bright future in private sectors also.
Amazing. The other question I think has been shared on the chat as well, purely from the academic background, or the experience background. When somebody is looking for a advancement in the career in power, do you necessarily look at people who come with power sector experience prior to that, or are as a domain open to look at diversity in terms of the profile, in terms of their academic background? So what's the kind of typical credibility list you look at to help to make people grow in this segment?
So it's a very good question, very practical question. So I would give it in 2 parts. One is what level we are hiring. See if we and what role we are hiring. So one is level, and the role becomes very, very important. So anybody, if we are hiring say less than 5 years of experience, what he has done in past is not important. So we are not looking for typically people who have experience in generation, transmission, or distribution, or any of the power sector. We are quite open in the core area also. The second is the role. So only in operation and maintenance, somebody has to have an electrical engineering background or has to have some relevant experience if we are hiring for say manager and above. But other functions like you have project, you have commercials, you have regulatory, you have enforcement, HR, all other function apart from operation and maintenance function. Even if somebody does not have electrical background, or even if somebody does not have experience, we are open and we hire. In fact, I would say that around 50% of the hiring in any of the power sector is of non-power background people. So
Oh, great.
people should not lose hope if they haven't worked in companies. But what we look for, I also must share that see currently, and I'm not becoming critical. It is my duty to give a very honest opinion to students also. Students are very easygoing nowadays. they think that they are passing out from UPSC or XYZ college, so company would line up for them, which is not correct. What we look, or what my team look when they visit more than about say 50 campuses across India, is that what this student have done during his study, apart from what is there in the course curriculum. So for example, if there would be internship, there would be some project which the person should have done, which is matching with what he wants to do. So suppose somebody wants to make career in, say, for example, enforcement, or somebody wants to make career in power trading. So he should have taken effort in this 2 years time during the period of his MBA to do some sort of exposure trip, internship, free project with some company where he want to build career. If he has not taken the effort, which means this guy is not serious. So that is something which we look while hiring very consistently.
Great. Now, even at a managerial or an above position, if somebody is looking to grow in the top management, what kind of profiles or what kind of opportunities we look forward to in a top management roles? Yes, and where is your basic gap or demand right now is in terms of need of talent? Is it at a mid-level management or at a starting level of in the some domain? Or I know the demand is there everywhere, but where do you put it across? Which is your biggest pain area?
So the biggest pain area is middle management.
Okay.
So what happens is that most of the power companies hire people at the entry level. You will see any company, whether it is public sector or private company, we are very entry focused. We don't believe on lateral hiring because it takes time to create. So most of the hiring happens at the entry level. Entry level in the sense not from campus obviously the large chunk of hire, but we also hire lateral people 4 or 5 years of experience, and then we feel that the person would be able to groom themselves to get into the higher role. Now with an increase of this privatization, I'll give you an example of my company. Now we got say distribution, say for example in Odisha. Now we need people who can go and take over higher responsibility because we have to take large operation in Odisha. So we need a lot of people who will go there. Now we have sent people. We have sent people there. Now, when we have sent people there, we need here the lower level or middle level management people to take over the higher responsibility. And there we see a little bit of gap. And for that, we have started a very unique program called Talent 100, which I'll share some other time. So to be very brief, middle level is something which is the concern area and which is the focus area for most of the organizations.
No, that I think that's possibly a very common phenomena everywhere. Also, everybody's looking to have that next rung of leadership being groomed. So that's where the growth also happens for a lot of companies, and with the kind of numbers you're talking about, I'm sure that is the area should be there also. Yeah. Now, as a parting words, what are the few things you would like to share with our own students on? Uh, what are the areas to be focused on in the next coming months with the kind of uncertainty we are having around? If I were a student, if I were one particular student looking for a career in power, what are the 2 3 pointers I need to be looking forward to?
So before I answer, Sumant, I'll just take the question quickly from the chat box so that I don't leave people. So Rohini is asking, any placement provided by UPES? That you need to ask Rohini UPES, not me.
Yeah.
So I just skip that question. Your college will be able to answer that. The second is, if a candidate has academic background of 5 6 years and he is pursuing power management, then what will be the opportunity in power sector? So opportunity is quite a lot, which I shared with you, Mehul. Opportunity depends on what you want to do. Opportunity could be in operation, could be in maintenance, could be in enforcement, could be in project, could be in commercial. Commercial also has many factors. You have MMG. So these are various areas which are there where opportunity could be there. In fact, we also prefer people, if somebody has interest in the area of HR or finance or any support function also, we prefer people who have power management experience because you know what we are doing. So we don't need to train you. So these are many options which are there. And obviously, Mehul, if you're looking for what level, so generally we hire freshers as a management trainee, and after 1 year they are being taken as assistant manager. So obviously, if you have 5 to 6 years experience, you can look for a manager oblique senior manager designation. This designation varies from organization to organization. Some organizations have too many designations, so they can give you senior manager. Some companies have a less number of designations, so they will give you manager designation. I hope I answered you, Mehul. You can write yes, no. Then Saima is asking what sort of profile a fresher get post MBA in part. I mentioned to you initially you will be taken as a management trainee or management trainee if you have done MBA. Then management trainee we have, or most of the company has a program of 1 year. So we treat you as our very important person in the organization. We keep you 1 year. We give you a hostel. We have full program. We make all arrangements for you, for your learning, for your enjoyment, for your everything. I mean, whatever you can think of, you can do in the next 1 year's time. You go through different roles. You go through operations, commercial, these roles, what I have explained to you. And at the end of the year, we ask you that now you have seen all the verticals, what do you want to do? And based on your preference, which area or which role you want to get into, most of the company, including us, assign you the role. So the role will depend on what you want to do if you are a fresher. Saima. Okay, the next question is from Aditya Jain. What do you feel is better, higher management role like? Aditya, it's a very specific question. See, if you have done power management, there is no precondition. After you have reached, say, a general manager and above, your qualification really becomes irrelevant. You would see many graduates who have become CEO, and you will see many IIM graduates who have not become CEO. So it depends. If you're looking at a, say, director-like position, very senior position in the organization, your qualification really does not matter much. So how you have grown in the company, what kind of work you have done, what kind of experience you have taken, what kind of, especially soft skill, it becomes very important than the hard skill at the senior level, because you are not expected to go and do maintenance or operation work. You are expected to manage. You are expected to strategize. You are expected to manage the stakeholders. You are expected to communicate. So soft skill becomes much more important than hard skill if you are looking at director and above role, Aditya. So these are some questions which was there. I thought I'll just catch up and share.
Sure, Dr. Sabir. Just to address that question, I'm sure we are an education organization. We would always appreciate if somebody is doing an education. But one point you've made is very true. After a point of time, more than the education which you have, the skills which you have learned, the experience you have possessed becomes very important. But where does education come in? It gives you that launch pad. It gives you that starting zone for you to, that opportunity. So look at it that way. It's never the only. Just because I've done an MBA does not mean by nature or by natural process I'll actually be the CEO of the company or director of the company, because a lot of people would be pursuing that. But what it gives me, it puts you into that race. It puts you into that spectrum of consideration.
See, I have shared a link of my book. I'm not promoting my book, but all the royalty of this book is being donated to Food for Safety programs. Besides helping you, I am also helping large number of students. See, person who is brilliant will get the job is not necessary. The person who gets the job is the person who knows how to get a job. Okay, I have seen many top in management college students who are topper academically, they have not landed up into good job. But the guy who is mediocre, he's street smart, he knows how to get a job, is the person who gets the job. So that is one. The second is you need to build a network. You need to create the way I shared with you, which is part of the book also. You need to create the list of 200 people and you need to be very, very selfish. Create list of only 200 people who can help you in your job, getting a job, or once you have got into job, how do you grow? So build that relationship with that individual. The relationship should not be transactional. कि आज जरूरत पड़ी तो phone कर दिया, आज internship की जरूरत पड़ी तो mail कर दिया कि sir I need an internship. No, nobody will help you. So you need to create a relationship. How do you create a relationship? How do you build a network? That we'll share some other time, or you can refer few of the chapters which are there. But it's a long process, and that will determine your success. I can tell you 80% of the CEOs, 80% of the senior management are not hired based on their competency, are hired based on whom they know, whom they have worked with. They have a mentor who promoted that individual. They have a mentor who pushed that individual to grow faster. That is something very important. So beyond a point, your capabilities, because if you have reached a level, there will be 50 people in your organization who has reached that level, and most of them would be of similar capability. Now you need that push from someone. You need that pull from someone who is at the senior level, who will pull you up, who will project you. That is something which is very important, and that you need to master that art by networking and building relationships.
No, absolutely. I don't think, I mean, I could see a lot of, your experience coming in here. At the end of the day, it's the network which you build and the experiences compile makes you better in your career. So going back to that question I've asked, Mr. Subir, if there were three takeaways, three pointers the students have to go back and start focusing on as an immediate actionables, as a way forward, what would those three? And this is a question I think is a very typical thing. People talk about newer resolutions. With a new year coming up, maybe three resolutions.
They must take resolution. The first thing they should do is what they want to do. How to choose a career, that is that is something they need to decide, because they are deciding for the next 35 years. I'll give you a small example. If say Sumant has given Rohini 5,000 rupees that you invest, Rohini will do a lot of research. कहाँ invest करना है, share में डालूं, fixed deposit में डालूं, recurring में डालूं. She will do a lot of research. But when it comes to choosing a career, nobody does research. Rohini is choosing a career what Mehul has chosen, or what his professor has said, or what somebody else is doing, or what their parents have said. So you must do research. There are scientific tools which are there, basis which you should choose a career. So that is one which you should do. The second is create your contact list of 200 people based on the career which you have chosen, the sector which you have chosen, and start building that network now. And the third is prepare yourself for campus. If you are passing out from this college, prepare yourself from campus. Campus is a trick. Okay, you may be the best in the world, but the person who is coming, unfortunately, he has to select. So you need to know how to impress that person. So behind everything, there is a practice. Behind everything, there is a formula. So you need to know that formula and crack that. Ultimately, your objective is to get a good job, and I'm sure you all will get a good job if you follow 3-4 things in these guidance.
Great. Thanks, Subir, for those words of wisdom and sharing your experiences and the insights. I'm sure the young minds do need that. As we sign off, once again, thank you everyone for attending this session. In case you have further doubts and questions you would like to learn, you can always share on the forms which are being shared with you. One of the other days, I'm sure we will again invite Mr. Subir to share a few more things. He was talking about some development programs you're planning, talent development programs is planning in Tata Power, and more insights. So I'm sure all of you have enjoyed this session. Thanks once again, Mr. Sumir, for being on this platform, sharing your inputs with our team and with our kids out here, with the students out there. I'm sure some of them would actually end up with you, working with you. They get the opportunity to work with you also. And we all live in a world where we exchange talent. We also grow as together. And wishing all the very best for Tata Power and its future endeavors. Yes, India does need a lot of power, both in terms of the physical electricity power and also in terms of words of power as well, and which you have given today. And we will look forward to interact with you once again.
Thank you very much, Sumant. India needs a lot of power, and Power Company needs a lot of power students like today attending. So I'm sure I look forward to working with these people, and I will be happy to support them in future also. If anybody need any kind of support, you can reach out to me. Thank you once again. Thank you once again. Happy to be here.
Have a great evening. Bye-bye.